Before you watch this story, promise me one thing. If someone whispers your name in the middle of a silent forest, don't answer. Because that's exactly how Yuki's nightmare began. The rain had been falling for hours over a small mountain village in northern Japan. Hidden among ancient cedar trees, the village looked peaceful from a distance. Wooden houses stood quietly beneath the gray sky, while mist drifted through the narrow streets. Yet behind that peaceful appearance was a story no one wanted to tell. The villagers believed that the forest surrounding their homes was cursed. Every child grew up hearing the same warning. Never enter the whispering forest after sunset. Some laughed at the legend. Others feared it, but everyone respected it. 17-year-old Yuki never believed ghost stories. She believed every mystery had an explanation. Living with her grandfather after losing her parents years earlier, Yuki had become independent and fearless. Her only true companion was a large white Akita dog named Kumo. Kumo had been with her since he was a puppy. He followed her everywhere. He protected her without hesitation. Their bond was stronger than words. Every evening, they walked along the edge of the forest. While Yuki admired the beauty of nature, Kumo always watched the darkness between the trees, as if he sensed something invisible. One evening, just before sunset, Yuki noticed something unusual. The forest was completely silent. No birds, no insects, not even the sound of the wind. Then Kumo suddenly stopped walking. His ears lifted. His body became stiff. A low growl escaped from his throat. Yuki looked around. "What's wrong, Kumo?" Before she could take another step, a soft whisper floated through the trees. "Help! Me!" The voice sounded like a frightened young woman. Yuki's heart skipped a beat. She turned toward the forest. "Who's there?" she called. No answer, only silence. Then the whisper came again, closer this time. "Please, help me." Without warning, Kumo barked loudly and stood directly in front of Yuki, blocking the path into the forest. It was the first time he had ever behaved this way. Yuki placed a hand on his head, trying to calm him. "It's okay." But Kumo refused to move. His eyes remained fixed on the darkness. Suddenly, the whisper disappeared. The forest became silent once again. That night, Yuki couldn't stop thinking about what she had heard. Was someone truly lost inside the forest, or had it simply been the wind? The next morning, terrible news spread through the village. A local hunter had disappeared. His bicycle was found near the entrance of the whispering forest, but the man himself had vanished without a trace. The villagers searched all day. They found nothing. Only strange footprints leading deeper into the trees. And then, the footprints suddenly ended, as if the man had simply disappeared into thin air. Yuki looked toward the distant forest. For the first time in her life, she began to wonder if the old stories were true. The village was quieter than ever. No one dared to speak loudly after the hunter disappeared. As the sun began to set, every door was locked, every window was closed, and the streets became empty. But Yuki couldn't stop thinking about the mysterious voice. If someone was truly trapped inside the forest, she couldn't ignore it. That evening, she packed a flashlight, a bottle of water, a small first aid kit, and an old compass that had belonged to her father. Kumo watched her silently. When she opened the front door, the loyal Akita stood up immediately. He wasn't going to let her go alone. Together they stepped toward the whispering forest. The air grew colder with every step. The trees blocked almost all of the fading sunlight, leaving the narrow trail covered in shadows. Yuki switched on her flashlight. Its bright beam cut through the darkness. For several minutes nothing happened. Only the sound of their footsteps echoed through the forest. Then Kumo suddenly froze. His ears stood straight, his eyes focused on something hidden between the trees. Yuki slowly turned her flashlight toward the same direction. Nothing. Just endless rows of ancient cedar trees. She sighed with relief, but only for a moment. A loud crack echoed behind them. Yuki spun around. No one was there. Her heartbeat grew faster. "Stay close, Kumo," she whispered. They continued walking until they discovered something unusual. A small stone path, almost completely covered with moss, stretched deeper into the forest. It didn't appear on any village map. Someone had built it long ago. Curious, Yuki followed the forgotten path. After several minutes, an old wooden torii gate appeared through the fog. Beyond it stood an abandoned shrine. Its roof had partially collapsed. The wooden walls were covered in vines. A broken bell hung silently above the entrance. Everything felt wrong. As Yuki stepped inside, Kumo refused to follow. He stood outside the shrine, growling into the darkness. Then, the whisper returned. "Yuki." She froze. This time it wasn't a stranger's voice. It sounded exactly like her mother. The same gentle voice she hadn't heard in years. Tears filled her eyes. "Mom?" The voice came again. "I'm here." For one brief moment, Yuki wanted to follow it, but Kumo barked loudly. Once, twice, again and again. The sound broke the strange spell. Yuki blinked. She realized the voice wasn't coming from one direction. It was everywhere, all around her, as if the forest itself were speaking. Her flashlight suddenly flickered, then went out. Darkness swallowed the shrine. Only the pale moonlight entered through the broken roof. Slowly, very slowly, a tall shadow appeared behind the altar. It had no face, no mouth, only two glowing white eyes staring directly at Yuki. The creature didn't walk. It floated silently across the floor. Every step made the air colder. Yuki couldn't move. Fear held her in place. Outside, Kumo barked with all his strength. The shadow stopped. Its glowing eyes slowly turned toward the dog. For just a second, it smiled, and then it vanished into the darkness. The forest became silent once again, but Yuki knew one terrifying truth. Something inside the whispering forest had been watching her. Long before she ever entered it, Yuki stood frozen inside the abandoned shrine. The shadow had disappeared, but the cold remained. Her flashlight flickered back to life, casting a weak beam across the dusty floor. Near the broken altar, she noticed a small wooden box. Carefully, she opened it. Inside was an old leather-bound diary. The pages were yellow with age. On the first page was a date from more than 100 years ago. The diary belonged to the shrine's last caretaker. As Yuki continued reading, the truth slowly came to light. Long ago, a terrible landslide had buried part of the village. Many families were separated. A young girl became lost in the forest while searching for her parents. She wandered for days. She called for help, but no one ever found her. According to the diary, her grief and loneliness gave birth to a restless spirit. Over the years, the spirit learned to imitate the voices of loved ones. It lured people deeper into the forest, trapping them in endless confusion until they lost all sense of direction. The caretaker had protected the shrine for decades, using its sacred bell to keep the spirit away. But after he died, no one remained to guard the forest. At the bottom of the final page, one sentence was written in bold ink. "When the bell rings with a fearless heart, the darkness loses its voice." Yuki looked up. The old bell still hung above the shrine entrance. Its rope was worn and covered with dust. Outside, Kumo suddenly barked, then growled. The temperature dropped again. The whisper returned. "Yuki." This time, dozens of voices echoed together. Some sounded like children. Some sounded like old men. Some sounded exactly like her mother. The faceless shadow slowly emerged from the darkness. Its glowing eyes burned brighter than before. It moved closer and closer, without taking a single step. Yuki grabbed the bell rope with trembling hands. The spirit rushed toward her. Just before it reached her, Kumo leapt forward. The brave Akita stood between Yuki and the shadow, barking with all his strength. The distraction gave Yuki one chance. She pulled the rope. The ancient bell rang through the forest. A deep, powerful sound echoed between the towering cedar trees. The ground seemed to tremble. The whispers stopped instantly. The shadow twisted violently, as though the sound itself was tearing it apart. For one brief moment, Yuki saw the face of the lonely young girl, hidden within the darkness. She no longer looked frightening. She looked sad. She smiled softly. Then she slowly faded into thousands of glowing lights that drifted into the night sky. The forest became warm again. The wind returned. Birds began singing as the first light of dawn appeared. The curse was finally broken. Days later, the missing hunter and several other villagers were found wandering safely near the edge of the forest. None of them remembered what had happened. Life slowly returned to normal. The abandoned shrine was restored. Every year, the villagers placed fresh flowers there in memory of the lonely girl whose spirit had finally found peace. Yuki and Kumo continued their evening walks together. But now, the whispering forest was silent. No whispers, no shadows, only the sound of the wind moving gently through the ancient trees. Still, on certain foggy nights, some villagers claim they see a white Akita standing quietly beside the old shrine, watching over anyone who enters the forest. Whether it is Kumo or merely a legend, no one truly knows. The end.